gold toilets, billion-dollar stashes, and palaces that make Las Vegas look humble. Dictators have turned corruption into an Olympic sport. Welcome to the Dictator Corruption Tier List, where we rank history's most outrageous thieves in power. Saddam Hussein was basically the king of showing off. While most leaders would chill with 1 or 2 mansions, Saddam went full collector mode. He had palaces everywhere, with lakes, fountains, and crazy designs just to prove he was on top. One of his most famous spots was literally called Victory Over America. Yeah, he even named his palace like a diss track. But the biggest flex was his own version of Versailles. This place was massive, around 450,000 square feet, with 62 rooms and 29 bathrooms. Every detail screamed, "I'm untouchable." He even sat on a golden-style throne gifted by Yasser Arafat, like he was starring in his own empire movie. The wild part? While he was living like that, regular Iraqis were struggling. Most people relied on food rations and lived in poverty, watching their leader act like he was in a video game castle. The gap between him and his people was insane. Saddam belongs in A tier, top-level flexing, but it didn't save him in the end. If Saddam's golden AK was flashy, Muammar Gaddafi took things to another level. Known as the Gold Gremlin of Libya, he did not just collect shiny things, he surrounded himself with them. Before his fall, he sold nearly a fifth of Libya's gold reserves, but not before filling his palaces with treasures that looked straight out of a strange dream. He had golden pistols placed around like decorations, golden tea trolleys being pushed across vast marble halls, and the strangest piece of all was a mermaid-shaped couch with his daughter's face carved into it. His taste was not about elegance or refinement, it was pure excess, almost like he wanted to live inside a cartoon villain's hideout. Every room was filled with over-the-top pieces that made it feel less like a palace and more like a fantasy set. Gold was not just his wealth, it was his entire personality. Gaddafi was eccentric, bizarre, and fully committed to turning gold into his identity. S tier. Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos took extravagance to a whole new level. While ruling the Philippines, they looted an estimated $5 to $10 billion, most of which was never recovered. And while the nation struggled with poverty and debt, Imelda was busy turning closets into museums. She famously left behind over 3,000 pairs of shoes, making her more of a shoe collector than an actual political figure. The absurd part? Many of these shoes were untouched, just sitting there as symbols of excess, while millions of Filipinos were barely surviving. Their rule wasn't just about money, it was about showing off wealth in the most tone-deaf way possible. The people couldn't afford rice, but Imelda could have opened enough shoe stores to rival every mall in Manila. It was corruption, dressed up in designer heels, and that level of lavish self-indulgence, while the country suffered, firmly places the Marcos family in the C tier of outrageous dictatorships. Mobutu Sese Seko ruled Zaire like it was his personal stage. He called himself the Leopard King, strutting in custom suits, a leopard skin hat, and a belt made of pure gold decorated with actual banknotes. He wasn't shy about showing off either. When other leaders flew on state jets, Mobutu casually chartered the Concorde, one of the fastest planes in the world, just to go shopping in Paris. Back home, he built palaces so over the top they were nicknamed the Versailles of the jungle. These compounds had gold-tipped fences, marble floors, and imported chandeliers, while ordinary people struggled with poverty and inflation. He looted an estimated $5 billion from his country, making him one of the most notorious kleptocrats in history. But unlike some dictators who hid their greed, Mobutu turned his wealth into a spectacle. He didn't just steal money, he turned Zaire into a real-life rap music video. Flex alone doesn't make you famous like Gaddafi, so B tier. The Kim Dynasty of North Korea stands as one of the most extreme examples of luxury built on the backs of suffering citizens. Since 1948, 3 generations of the Kim family have ruled with an iron grip, keeping their people in isolation, poverty, and fear while indulging in unimaginable wealth. Their combined fortune is estimated at more than $5 billion, yet most of the population lives without reliable electricity, and many survive on meager rations, with stories of citizens being forced to eat grass during famines. Despite this, the ruling family surrounds itself with fleets of yachts, dozens of Rolls-Royces, marble-filled private jets, and even an armored train to travel in safety and style. Kim Jong-un has been photographed in a Maybach limousine that looks like it belongs in the heart of Monaco, while outside the palace walls, entire towns sit in darkness. The absurd contrast of totalitarian oppression paired with shameless luxury places the Kim dynasty easily in S tier. If the Kims turned dictatorship into a royal dynasty, Bashar al-Assad turned his into a family business. Taking power in 2000 after his father, Assad wasted no time making sure the family's grip extended to every corner of Syria's economy. Reports estimate that the Assads have looted between $1 and $2 billion, with even Bashar's uncle turning corruption into a personal side hustle, building up a fortune worth over 600 million euros in hotels and property. At one point, the family had £40 million frozen in London, and Bashar's cousin Rami Makhlouf controlled between $5 and $10 billion before falling out of favor. The setup is simple. Keep the country in war and fear while the family cashes in. The absurd detail is how openly the wealth was flaunted, with relatives owning businesses, villas, and entire sectors of the economy as if Syria were just their private account. In the end, it shows that running a dictatorship often looks a lot like running a mafia. Still, compared to the world's bloodiest tyrants, Assad's rule is less about unmatched terror and more about clinging to power through corruption and fear. E-tier. Nigeria's Sani Abacha treated his country like a bottomless bank vault. Nicknamed the Swiss banker, Abacha is remembered less for his politics and more for his astonishing efficiency in stealing money. During his rule from 1993 to 1998, he looted an estimated $2 to $7.7 billion, carefully stashing it away in offshore accounts across Europe and beyond. The absurd part is that the theft was so massive that even years after his death, banks kept discovering hidden Abacha millions. Every few years, another account surfaced, spitting out funds like a never-ending jackpot. Abacha's corruption became so legendary that it shaped Nigeria's global image, with his name forever tied to high-level looting. People joked he turned the Nigerian treasury into a private ATM, except the card only worked for him and his family, for the sheer damage he caused to his own people, and because he still kept his money after literally checking out, he gets a B tier. Slobodan Milosevic, often called the budget dictator, ruled Serbia from 1989 to 2000. He looted between $1 and $4 billion, quietly funneling the money through Cyprus and Russia. Even loans meant to stabilize the country from the International Monetary Fund disappeared without a trace. Instead of rebuilding Serbia's economy, Milosevic tightened his grip by controlling monopolies, while the country itself collapsed under international sanctions. The absurd detail is that while ordinary Serbians were struggling with shortages and poverty, Milosevic managed to keep himself comfortable by bending every rule of finance in his favor. It was corruption on clearance, where the dictator lived large, but his country broke apart piece by piece. You could say he was proof that not all dictators go for gold-plated palaces. Some just quietly drain the system until nothing is left. That is why Milosevic lands in D tier, a bargain bin dictator compared to the billion-dollar giants like Suharto and Gaddafi. After the Marcos shoe empire, corruption only got bigger in Indonesia under Suharto. He ruled from 1967 to 1998 and was called the Quiet Billionaire because of how much wealth he managed to grab without drawing too much attention. Transparency International later ranked him as the richest dictator in history, with estimates ranging from $35 to $67 billion. His children lived like royalty. They owned ranches in New Zealand, mansions in Los Angeles, private jets, and even a Boeing 747. What makes this story even wilder is that his official salary as president was just $5,000 a year. On paper, Suharto looked like a modest leader earning an ordinary income, but behind the scenes, he was living like a modern billionaire with endless luxury. This was not just personal corruption, but a dynasty of theft where the family turned politics into a money machine.